We are all getting ready for this beautiful upcoming holiday, Pesach. Let's just say a couple of words for this beautiful Yom Tov. As we know, the Arizal teaches us, the Rebbe mentioned it many times on Pesach, that it comes the night of Pesach, the Haggadah we have to say with a great simcha, enthusiasm, joy. As I read once that the one that was reading the Haggadah, but the Rebbe was not so enthusiastic, and the Rebbe says, where is the simcha, where is the joy that we need for Pesach? And the reason that Rizal says we got to do it, because Pesach is the time that the Shekhinah, the dwelling of Hashem, is much more revealed upon us more than the entire year. And this is the time of Pesach that Hashem is with us, when Hashem gives us all His blessings, and Hashem really watches over us. As we know, there's a story about the Rebbe. I think it was a Pesach Tafshin Chavtes, if I'm not mistaken, 1969. Yeah, 1969. Then in the middle of the Seder, Pesach, the Rebbe was singing the Haggadah, and it was by the end of the Haggadah, and they would say Ki Lo Olam Chazdoi. We said all the Ki Lo Olam Chazdoi 26 times. And the Rebbe got very into it, and it was like, there's sort of something very, very powerful coming with these words. He was saying Ki Lo Olam Chazdoi, and later they found out that by the Rebbe saying the Haggadah at that moment, he saved a big tragedy in Israel, in the army then. It was by the Suez Canal. Let's not get into the whole story, but it was a big miracle happened in that moment. And the reason all is because, yes, the Rebbe is great, and the Rebbe is watching over all of us, but the night of Pesach is a beautiful night, that this is the night that the Shekhinah is with us. This is the night that Hashem is watching over us, and this is why there's also a tradition that we do not say the long Kriyat Shema before we go to sleep, and the whole idea is because Hashem is watching over us. From this came a tradition that many people would leave their houses open on Pesach, because this is the night that Hashem watches over us. We do not have to lock our doors. And all related to this idea of the Arizal, that this is the night that Hashem is here with us, the Shekhinah is in this world, and that's what we have to have the great simcha. That's why I wanted to share a little story about this idea that the night of Seder, Hashem is watching over the people. Hashem is watching over all of us. And the story goes with this fellow that he was not a chassid. It's a long story, but I'll make it short. The fellow, he was not a chassid, and his son-in-law was a chassid, but he didn't know. And then when he found out his son was a chassid, he got very upset, because in those days they didn't get along together. And he found him learning the book. The book was called Toldus Yaakov Yosef. It was the great Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Polnoi was learning this book. And they're having a big fight between them. And finally he got to the judge, the guy that he was ruling over that city, over that governor, whatever he was. And it came in front of him, this whole debate. And the story goes that the father-in-law was telling his side, and the son-in-law his side, and finally he's a non-Jew, he didn't understand what are you arguing about. And he was saying that he was learning this book. He says, which is the book? He showed him the book. Toldus Yaakov Yosef. He says, I don't know how to read this book. Who is the author of this book? So he said the author of this book is Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna, and we don't follow this, and so on and so forth. So this Gentile, the judge, got very serious, and he said, I have to tell you a story. And that's the point I wanted to say this story. Because many years ago I was a general in the army, and I was traveling with my soldiers from one city to another city. And there was one evening that we stayed in a certain city, and that city was the city of Polna. And we stayed there, and we allowed the soldiers for a certain time to go and shop and whatever they want to do in the city, but until we continue. But then it came the time that we have to continue our march, and we did the whistles and the all signs, everybody to get together, and everybody got together, but it was missing 3 soldiers. And when the 3 soldiers are missing, we got to look for them and search for them. Maybe they ran away, maybe a situation happened with them. And we sent people to look for them. And they looked and they searched and they couldn't find. Eventually, some of the messengers came back and it says, we found them. They are in some Jewish home, but they can't move. They're stuck over there. He says, what do you mean they're stuck over there? Tell them to come. They went back. They came back. They can't move. They can't come. He says, I didn't understand what it is. It doesn't make sense. What do you mean they can't come? And those 3 soldiers were high-ranked soldiers. It just didn't make sense to me. So I said, I'm going to go look myself. And he continues the story. I went to this Jewish home to look. And I walked into the house. I saw some old rabbi with a long white beard sitting there reading his book, whatever he was doing. And then I saw 3 of my soldiers there standing. So I told them, just get out, we gotta go. But I saw they're like really glued, they're like frozen, they're not moving anywhere. And as much as I scream at them and I tell them to leave, they're not leaving. So I realized I still do something with this rabbi. So I walked over to the rabbi with great respect and I tell him, Rabbi, 3 of my soldiers are at your house. I need them to leave. We got to go on in our march and they can't leave for whatever the reason is. Probably have something to do with it. Please, Rabbi, do something. So the rabbi picked up his eyes from the book and he looks at me and he says, probably they took something from the table. And apparently what happened, that there was the night of Pesach, the Leila Seder. And this great rabbi had a tradition to leave his doors open, everything open. He's with a book. Those 3 soldiers, they saw open house, and they saw a beautiful table after the Seder, whereas we know the tradition by the Seder night, you leave the silver and everything on the table. So they came in and they took some stuff. But they were frozen, they couldn't leave. So this is what the rabbi, Rabbi Yosef, told him. They'll get the stuff out of their pockets, they'll be able to go. But they couldn't move. So he said, I went myself, I've checked their pockets, and yes, one had a silver spoon, the other one a silver fork, and I took the stuff out and I put it back on the table. And when I put the stuff back on the table, they're able to get out. This is this fellow, Rabbi Yosef. And based on that, he said, he's a great tzaddik, a great fellow. I'm a Gentile, I'm vouching for him. The story continues, it's a long story. I just want to bring out this point of the story of Rabbi Yosef, that the night of the Seder, God watches over our homes. There's nothing what to worry about. And because nothing to worry about, we have to know that Mitzvah Hashem comes the Seder by us too. We have to know, we have to have, as the Rebbe said, the great Simcha by the Seder. When the great Simcha we should have, because God is with us then more than the other time. And God shall be with us again this year, and be with us in a revealed way that we should see Mashiach Tzidkenu in our Pesach Seder. With Eliyahu Navi, with Mashiach, and for sure with all the tzaddikim. Have yourself a beautiful, beautiful Pesach night.